Some of you saying that we should support local restaurants instead of Cracker Barrels anyway. I have no problem with that, but I don't have anything against Cracker Barrel. Walter in Tupelo, I'm sorry, it's Jimmy in Ripley, says he got upset at Cracker Barrel way back when they stopped serving molasses with their biscuits. And Jim, I think you can still ask for it. They just don't bring it out on their own.
The real question is, can you get mustard on your biscuits, though?
Well, I suppose. The state auditor is here this morning, Shad White. I promised I would tell this story quickly. I only have one negative experience at Cracker Barrel. Before my wife and I were married, I was going with her family to the beach, and we stopped. Her dad loved Cracker Barrel, and we stopped somewhere along the way. And as we were ordering, I was like, and could I get some biscuits while we're waiting on the order? Like, they would bring out a basket of biscuits as like an appetizer. And she said, no, we can't serve those until the meal. I said, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon?
That's why I came here.
I need. She's like, no, you can't have any until the meal. And I said, ma'am, we'll pay for them if that's a new policy. They don't have to be complimentary. But I just want a biscuit. And she said no and walked off.
About you're just that left time, there holding your triangle peg game, and you're like, what do I do with myself? This is terrible.
No, sir, Mr. State Auditor. About that time, the table next to us finished their meal, and they got up, and I looked over, and doggone if there weren't 2 biscuits in the basket.
Oh, no, Richard, no.
I got the basket, I got the 2 biscuits, and I sat there, and I waited patiently for the waitress to come back before I took the first bite. I was like, it's okay, I got biscuits, thanks.
Oh, no.
My wife and mother-in-law were mortified.
Yeah, you're not a germaphobe, clearly.
Clearly not. Shad White joins us, state auditor. It has been a bit of a quiet stretch from you until the last few days on social media. That's where a lot of people hear from you on a fairly regular basis. I think we know why, but tell us.
Yeah, so I was gone for military duty for a big chunk this summer. I'm, as you may know, Richard, I'm in the Mississippi National Guard, and our guardsmen all around the country are right now, training. They're deployed in the Middle East and a lot of other places around the globe. They're in D.C., keeping the peace there. They're on our southern border. So the National Guard are very, very busy. It's a very different guard than it was 40 or 50 years ago. So anyway, I spent a chunk of my summer doing that, but glad to be back, and my kids are glad to have me back. My 2-year-old son has been following me around like a duck for the last 4 or 5 days. Like if he brushes his teeth with me, we comb our hair together. Like he would follow me to the bathroom if I let him. He's glad to have Daddy back.
Appreciate your willingness to serve.
Yeah,
that's
thanks, man.
That's a big deal, and it's not easy to do when you get to the age where you have kids and a family and a full-time job, and you got to pick up and leave. I mean, I know the old commercials that they used to use to promote the National Guard and to recruit were 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Pick it up and making it go. But I am curious. So as you were in Guard duty this summer, and some of these deployments are happening, whether it's first to Los Angeles or now to Washington, D.C., and potentially some other cities. What is the reaction among members of the Guard seeing this happen? Is there concern about the way the Guard is being used, or is there a willingness and an openness to, hey, this is part of what we signed up for?
Well, I can only speak for myself. I won't speak for the Guard, but I'll say for myself, when I was watching all that, my first thought was, this is why you sign up. You don't sign up to just hang out at home. You sign up and you train so that you can be of benefit to your country. And there's no greater benefit to the country than keeping us safe both home and abroad. So I've been proud of the stuff that President Trump has done, specifically with the Guard. I mean, I think it's going to make D.C. safer. It's already made D.C. safer. So I think it's a good use of the Guard, and I think there's a lot of Guardsmen around the country who probably share my view, and I'll just speak for myself, who probably share my view and think that, this is what you signed up for, is to make the country safer.
Yeah. You may have seen this or heard us talking about it earlier this morning. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, was he was spouting off about how things aren't nearly as bad as we think they are in Chicago, which kind of reminded me of some of the campaigns where we were talking about economic issues a year ago, and they're like, no, don't believe your checking account. Just believe what we're telling you. Toby Barker and the governor both kind of fired back and said, hey, how about you worry about Illinois? There's so much going on across the country. Is there anything that Democrats are saying right now that is resonating with anyone beyond their most ardent supporters? Any part of their message that's resonating?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, and I try to be unbiased when you ask me that question and think about it just from the perspective of a dad and husband and normal voter. I don't hear anything that's compelling from them because it still feels like they're in truth denial mode. It's just what you said, Richard. When Biden was president, they were in truth denial mode about inflation. They wanted us to ignore the fact that when we went to the grocery store or the gas pump that prices were higher and things were worse. And now it's like they want their voters to ignore the fact that their cities are dangerous. Well, voters are not going to accept that if it conflicts with their own experience in life. You have to offer solutions, and you have to stop talking about, the craziest elements of their agenda and actually speak about common sense ideas for real people that are going to make their lives a little bit better. And President Trump has relentlessly focused on that. I mean, I think you saw, he spoke in the last 24 hours about a new crime bill, which will make America safer. Obviously deployed troops, the Guard into D.C. to make D.C. safer. Saved Cracker Barrel in the last 48 hours. All these things are actually things that touch people's real lives. And so I think as long as conservatives keep focusing on that, Democrats are going to be left in the wilderness.
I'm wondering if the position director of marketing is one that is going to go the way of the dodo bird, because some of these ideas keep not working. I'm glad you mentioned the Cracker Barrel thing. We obviously were talking about that in the last segment, but you have beat the drum about eliminating DEI within Mississippi governmental institutions, whether that's schools, colleges, universities, governmental offices. I would say a setback for that movement last week with a ruling that came from a judge here in the state of Mississippi that says, no, this is unconstitutional. What does this look like in the days, weeks, months moving forward? Because you have the legislature that said yes, other state elected officials pushing this, looks like it's moving in that direction, people starting to comply with it, and then it's like slam on the brakes. That's not going to happen right now.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good summary. I mean, a couple of years ago, we released a report that quantified how much taxpayer money was going to DEI offices at our public universities. And then we started talking also about what those university offices were doing, holding programs about the evils of whiteness and all this other sort of stuff that's just plain racist and most people in Mississippi just don't agree with. So that built up a lot of political pressure. There had been a bill that would have eliminated DEI in the education system floating around for years, but it finally passed last session. The bill was a good bill. It was written in conjunction with, I think, a couple of think tanks and other folks who had written similar legislation for other states around the country. The bill passes, gets signed into law by the governor, and as you pointed out, Richard, a federal judge not long ago enjoined the bill, which means shut down enforcement of the bill. So what happens now is that case will have motion practice. The lawyers will file motions back and forth, and then it may go to trial. Ultimately, the judge will have to make a final decision about whether or not he's going to declare the law unconstitutional. And then no matter which way he decides, I'm sure it's going to get appealed to the Fifth Circuit and could get appealed further past that. So there's a long road ahead. The good news to me is that Mississippi voters and Mississippi's representatives have made it clear that kind of stuff doesn't belong at our universities. Our universities need to be relentlessly focused on building graduates who can compete in tomorrow's economy. They don't need to be focused on this weird woke stuff. And so I hope that the universities will just take it upon themselves to shut down their DEI offices, to get taxpayer money going to the programs that actually fit our economy, and that drives job growth. That drives the creation of the workers and the thinkers and the leaders that we need for tomorrow.
Someone on the C Spire text line asked who the judge was. It's District Judge Henry Wingate, who, interestingly enough, was actually a Ronald Reagan appointee, if I remember correctly. Ronald Reagan or George Bush?
I think Reagan is right.
Yeah, I think it was Reagan who appointed him. And there are a lot of people that say he has generally been a pretty good judge, even if they significantly disagree with this ruling. We'll see where it goes.
Yep.
And wouldn't it be nice if we could get to a point where you didn't have to have affirmative action in hiring, you didn't have to have DEI mandates. It was just, and I mean this genuinely, I don't care about skin color. What if it was just the person who was best suited for the job got the job?
Yep. That's how you have the best universities possible, the best companies possible. That's how the most talented people rise to the top and get the best results. And that's the world we need to be moving toward.
Hang with us for just a couple more minutes, if you don't mind.
Sure.
On the other side, we'll talk a little bit about SNAP in Mississippi. Will the state of Mississippi be requesting a waiver to get rid of sugary goodness or badness within the SNAP program? We'll take a time out. We're back right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Hey, quick reminder, Sports Talk Mississippi will be in Oxford at the College Corner off Sisk Avenue. That's in the Oxford Commons tomorrow. Get all your game day gear for the kickoff of the college football season, plus great deals throughout the store. Your home for all Rebel gear is at College Corner in Oxford, the Oxford Commons off of Sisk Avenue. Shad White, the state auditor, is my guest, and we were talking about some of the DEI stuff in advance of right before the break, and we had a message on the C Spire text line, and I don't know if it was a question as much as a statement. Please tell the state auditor that Ole Miss just simply renamed its DEI department and retitled people. I don't think anyone actually lost their jobs. How does that help save money?
Yeah, I totally hear you. You know, you have some states, North Carolina as an example, where they shut down that DEI office and eliminated positions, and they could point to dollars saved, and then they reoriented those dollars and spent them on campus police, which is a great common sense thing to do to make our campuses safer. My concern right now, because the DEI law has been stopped by a federal court, my concern right now is that the Ole Miss DEI office and maybe some of the others are just going to change the name at the top of the door, and all the same people will be there doing all the same things. That's why you have to have political leadership too, to step up and say, all right, I'm going to appoint people to the IHL board that runs our universities that are going to put a stop to this. Like you have to attack this problem from all angles, and you got to have folks who are elected who will say, all right, enough of this, we're going to put a stop to it, and we're not going to let you just change the name and keep doing what you've always wanted to do. This is the sort of rot at the core of a lot of our universities, is that the folks who work in these DEI offices believe they have a moral duty to stand up for their viewpoints, even as crazy as those viewpoints are. And so you've got to just shut that down. That's the responsible thing to do.
You mentioned the IHL. That is an appointed board with long terms and a lot of responsibility. And I don't think there's anything easy about asking a single board to manage 8 universities. Mm-hmm. And 8 universities that are vastly different in the way they're put together, in the way their student population exists, in the way they're run, all of those things, and they're all run by the same board. As you look at different state agencies and different entities within the state of Mississippi, what concerns do you have about the IHL?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just voiced the biggest concern is that you have a board of people who are still in their careers. You know, you have folks who are running companies and are busy, and they're trying to, at the same time, serve as the oversight board for a bunch of different universities that are very different. And if you're not careful, that board can become a rubber stamp for whatever the craziest people at the universities want them to do. So I don't know what the answer is. Ultimately, it may be breaking that board up into having individual boards for each institution. It may be another structure entirely. But bottom line is, like, our universities are incredibly important to this state. You know, one of the biggest challenges that we have as a state going forward is keeping and training enough talented people to fuel our workforce. That is the biggest challenge our economy has for the next 25 years. Our universities and also our community colleges and workforce training programs, these are the places where that training is supposed to happen. If we don't get this right, I guarantee you that other states, Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, they're going to figure out how to get it right. and there will be a giant sucking sound of jobs going to those states because the workers will be there. The skilled and talented workers will be there. We have to get this right.
A couple of weeks ago, and this was while you were away for a part of the summer, we got the USDA announcement that 6 states had applied for and had received waivers for the elimination of sugary, unhealthy foods being purchased with SNAP program benefits. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you were away for a little while because I think you would have pounced on that. I actually jumped on that pretty quickly, and so maybe I was just ahead of you on that while you were at guard duty. But I likened it to the whole education. I am intentionally not calling it the Mississippi Miracle. I know that bothers a lot of people. But going from last to a very respectable place in the education rankings, people said it could never be done. In terms of health rankings and health outcomes, Mississippi is at the bottom, just like they were in education. Is there a scenario where, as a state, we can become significantly more healthy? And is that why you think the elimination of this part of the SNAP benefit program or the ban of the sugary purchases should be part, or is there something else that bothers you about that?
I think that's absolutely part of the solution. You know, President Trump and several other red states have led the way on this. We just released a report earlier this week, Richard, which you probably saw, that found that among SNAP recipients in Mississippi, and we'll just call them food stamps because that's what we called them growing up. You know, folks who get food stamps spend about 11% of their stamp value on sugary drinks or candy alone. And so that's the kind of thing that other states are banning with permission from the Trump administration. And yes, we should do that too in Mississippi. That's just good common sense government. We should not, as taxpayers, be paying for sugary drinks and candy and then also paying for the health care of those same people through Medicaid and watching our tax dollars fuel chronic diseases, which are then more expensive for us to treat as taxpayers later on. By our estimate, if you could reduce chronic diseases like obesity, diabetes, heart disease by just 1% in Medicaid among those SNAP recipients, you could save $22 million a year. So that's just good common sense government and a change that we need to make. But going back to your bigger question, is that going to solve the problem of health outcomes in Mississippi? Absolutely not. You know, really what we need to be talking about when we're talking about making Mississippi healthy again is not just policy changes, but we've got to have a healthier population that embraces good nutrition and embraces exercise. I think that starts with our kids. I've been really pleased to see President Trump roll back out the presidential fitness test, which was a big deal when I was a little boy, probably when you were too. And you know, we need a governor's fitness test here in Mississippi to encourage kids to exercise. We have so many kids that graduate from high school that can't even pass a basic military fitness test to join the military. And I've had buddies who told me.
You remember Governor Barber, the Let's Go Walking Mississippi campaign?
Yeah.
I remember those courses. Let's go walking Mississippi.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For our kids, maybe it needs to be like, let's go run a mile real fast. You know, like we really need to rethink physical education in Mississippi for our children and start teaching good habits early on. That's the way we really solve the long-run health crisis. And for anybody who believes that we can't do that in Mississippi, well, again, look at our educational outcomes in the last couple of years. They've improved dramatically. We still got a long way to go, but they've improved dramatically. We can get at these big challenges, but it's going to take energetic leadership. It's going to take people with a very clear vision of what to do and a proven ability to get results.
Can you do the 100 push-ups, 50 pull-ups challenge?
I did it yesterday. Yeah.
Did you?
I did it yesterday. Yeah, I was in the gym yesterday, and
What was the time?
I'm not going to tell you the time. It was bad.
Really?
I had already worked out a little bit, so I'd run. And I was like, I'm going to do that Hegseth thing. I'm not going to film myself because I didn't know if I could do it yet. I was like, I'm going to do this Hegseth thing. And I cranked it out, and it is harder than you would think. 2 years ago, I could do it weighted. So I would put a weighted vest on and do 50 pull-ups and 100 push-ups. But then I was pretty much smoked after that. So if you ever want to try it, Richard, I'll come to Oxford and we can go to the gym and knock it out.
I can do the 100 push-ups. I mean, not like 100 straight. I'd break it up probably into sets of 20 or 25.
Yeah, 25 is easy, yeah.
I cannot do the 50 pull-ups. No, I'm not saying I couldn't train and get there, but as it stands today, 100% no.
Well, I tell folks, if you're trying to train for pull-ups, like jump up into the pull-up position and like get there and hold it as long as you can. And then when you can't hold it any longer, don't just drop, like lower yourself as slowly as possible. And if you do that every time you work out, pretty soon you'll be doing 5 pull-ups, 10 pull-ups, 50 pull-ups.
Question just very matter of fact on the C Spire text line. Paul and Hernando, is he still going to run for governor?
Well, it's been fun being here. I appreciate Paul's question.
I mean, I just thought I'd throw it out. We got a minute 40 until the break.
Look, I'll say this. I've made it very clear that I'm seriously considering running for governor in the next election. Part of the reason is,
if not governor, something else?
Well, I'll say this. I've been auditor for 7 years now at this point, and the role of auditor is to look at how our executive branch functions and to find inefficiencies and things we could be doing better. You cannot fix those things as auditor. You can only audit. And so a lot of my expertise that I've built in the last 7 years and the expertise of my team is in fixing government agencies and making them more efficient. And so that's generally what the governor does, in addition to overseeing our response to disasters and being commander-in-chief of the National Guard. So that's one of the reasons why I've talked openly about it. But look, I'll say this too. I have 3 kids, ages 2, 4, and 6. I look at my kids and I think we need to be doing everything possible to make Mississippi better for them. What can I do to make that happen? And I think it is taking some of the lessons I've learned and applying those to government more broadly. And so we'll see what the future holds. No announcement today, but I appreciate Paul asking the question from Hernando.
If you ever want to make an announcement, we're here.
There you go.
5 mornings a week.
There you go.
I'm here 4 mornings a week, but it's open invitation. Shad White, state auditor here in Mississippi. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
Take a time out. Wrap up the 7 o'clock hour with you. Coming up next.